While we only had 3 years with him, this guy made a big impact. He's definitely a fan favorite. And if there was ever a guy that epitomized speak softly and carry a big stick, it's this guy. He is Chris Ivory.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Carney.
This is Toy Cook.
I'm Randy Mueller.
This is Quinn Early.
I'm Delvin Bro.
I'm Alex Molden.
I'm Jake Cup. And this is Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint.
The Life of a Saint.
Life of a Saint.
Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint. Whodat?
Now, before we jump into it, I just want to let everybody know, aside from speaking to Chris Ivory in this episode today, we also got to speak to his high school coach. So it's pretty interesting listening to him and hearing the way Chris was back in high school. In any event, here we go. How's it going, Chris? I guess we'll start at the very beginning. What was it like for you growing up in Texas?
I didn't really think of it much growing up in Texas, but I mean, as far as the team, Dallas was the home team growing up in Texas. Yeah, they had around that time, it was like a superstar team. They had Deion Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Aikman. I forget the other guy. There's another receiver in '88.
Michael Irvin.
Michael Irvin.
Yeah,
Michael Irvin. Yeah, so they had a roster.
Now, if my information is correct, you were raised by your mother, correct?
Yeah, predominantly my mom, and then my stepdad came in.
And growing up, did you have any relationship with your biological father?
No, not so much, no.
So when you were playing in high school, were there any realistic expectations that you thought you would eventually be in the NFL?
In high school, you said?
Yeah, in high school.
It was on my mind. I knew that's where I wanted to go. That was a goal of mine. I felt like it was achievable, but I knew it was hard work to get there. I had to have the talent.
For sure.
So, knowing that, I know I had to have the GPA and I had to get to college.
So in doing some research about you, I kept hearing this quote, if you let one man bring you down, you're not running hard enough. Who came up with that quote? And by the way, it's such a great quote.
This was a coach from my high school. His name was John King. Coach Ball was the other guy.
So growing up a kid from Texas, what made you choose Washington State as your college?
At the time, it was one of the I just wanted to get out of Texas. At the time, I wanted to see something different. And at the time, that was one of the few big schools that I had on my list of recruits. And the other schools were smaller schools that I didn't think got as much recognition that were in Texas. And the schools I wanted to go to, they wanted me to play defense. Schools such as Miami and, Miami.
Gotcha.
And I had, two other schools that wanted me to play running back, but it didn't pan out.
Was there something that happened at Washington State that didn't allow you to finish your college career there?
I got into some trouble over there. I don't want to speak much about that, though.
So I know you hurt your knee in college. Did you think that a knee injury would discourage NFL scouts from looking at you seriously, or did you think your college career as a whole, you put in enough that your resume kind of spoke for itself?
I thought it was still an opportunity, but I thought it would hamper me a little bit just because I had that on my resume. And with knees, it's a hard thing to, for them to look at me and feel like that you're going to come back 100%.
In your journey to make it to the NFL, who would you say was the most influential person in helping you get there?
It's not one particular person. It's multiple people, from my mom, friends, and family.
And so we covered the positive with the influences. We'll cover the negative as well. What would you say was the toughest obstacle you had to face in making it to the NFL?
Injuries.
What was it like when you finally got that call from the New Orleans Saints?
Felt good. That was actually a process too. Actually was supposed to go drafted. That didn't happen. Had, I think, 3 or 2 teams to go in as free agent. But when I got the call from New Orleans, I sat down with my agent and realized that was a place for me, and that that was just going to be the place for me. It was closer to home.
Did you feel any pressure to turn heads considering how stacked the Saints backfield was?
I just felt that it was a good opportunity. I didn't know what was going to come out of it, but I knew if I went in and just played to my ability, that something would come out of it. I was already understood that if you didn't make it in one location, it was possible to make it somewhere else, depending on what you did with its current team. But my mindset was to make it with the original team I was with.
Was there anybody that kind of helped you out whenever you arrived in New Orleans and show you what it was like to be a player in the NFL and some of the things to expect?
I still had to learn. I learned a lot of it really on my own, but if I had to name a player, it would be Pierre Thomas and Reggie. They were pretty good about bringing me under their wing.
So 3 years with the Saints, if you had to wrap it all up and put a bow on it, did you have like one moment that stands out as your favorite?
Not really a moment, but I would say that year. Well, you know what? The moment would probably be making the team. It would be making the team.
Being that it was relatively close to home and it's kind of where you got your start in the NFL, was it tough leaving New Orleans, or was it easy leaving New Orleans considering that you were going to the Jets and most likely going to have a pretty prominent role in their offense?
So there's a story behind that as well. I would have loved to have stayed, but I had a better opportunity moving on, being that the backfield was pretty full.
So obviously you get to the Jets and your career just explodes. Was that because you just had more opportunity and had the ability to showcase what you could do? Or was there something in the scheme or the personnel that was different than New Orleans that allowed you to have such great success?
I think it was more just being able to get the opportunity. I had more time in the backfield to actually get more than just a few carries. So I think more opportunity. But there, I definitely was able to display more what I was able to offer because of the opportunities, for sure. Didn't really have to split as much. I split carries at times, but not as much as I did in New Orleans.
Right.
And then you had more known name running backs over there as well. And Martin came in as first rounder. So he played, and before that, Reggie, then Pierre. When they went down, that just opened up the doors for me.
Check out this list of Saints legends. If you haven't seen every one of these Life of a Saint podcast episodes, I encourage you to check them out, not because of me, but because of them. Let's get back to it. When you take a look back at your career, is there anything, whether it's an award or an accolade or a moment, or is there anything that you're particularly proud of?
Yep. See, a lot of people don't really know this unless it's like really broadcasted, but I was a top 10 back 3 years out of the 9 years I played, but I don't really get the recognition for that. So in 2010, I actually was an alternate. I was a top 10 back. 2014 and then 2015, but most people only know the 2015 because that's the only time you actually were represented as a top 10 back, as far as going in to a Pro Bowl.
Just a little side note for you. I was doing some research for the interview, and it was alarming how little, as far as like YouTube video interviews, things like that, how little I could find on you. Is there any reason for that, or did a lot of stuff get lost, or what happened with that?
Well, part of that, just to fill you in on that, part of that is I started doing interviews, and then when I realized what some of those interviews did, like how the media twisted your words up and how it would come back to the coaches, it kind of like pushed me away as well. Like, you telling one thing and then they put something else in the paper. So I didn't like the fact that my words were being misconstrued at times or twisted. So that pushed me away from the media. But it came a time when my wife, basically she told me I control the interview. I tell her what I wanted to know. And, I tried to do that, and I did do that for a little bit, but I just felt like it was better just, to stay away from it and just keep it real short when I did do interviews.
So when I mentioned I was doing this interview with you, obviously a lot of people reached out. You are definitely a fan favorite, and I'm sure that you take a lot of pride in that. But one thing I wanted to ask you was, Von Miller mentioned you were one of the best running backs he ever played against. What's it like when you hear somebody that accomplished mention you in an elite class?
It says a lot, but to me, okay, it says a lot, but I know what I was capable of, and I've been knowing what I've been capable of for a long time. But I feel like for a person of his caliber or at his level of eliteness, I would say that it put more attention on my ability on the field. So I think that was big coming from Vaughn.
As far as the way your career panned out, do you have any regrets?
I won't really call it regret. I would just say that I wish I would have known how to take care of my body earlier when I got into the league. I felt like if I would have known how to better take care of myself, that things would have, played out a little better for me in the beginning.
So anytime somebody thinks of Chris Ivory, they think of that violent nature that you had when you were running the ball. How is your body holding up?
It's actually pretty good. It's pretty well. Once I made that transition over to New York, I really learned how to take care of my body. I learned that I had to spend a little money and put a little extra time into all these different remedies, therapeutics. Okay. Yeah. So doing all these things and learning that was something that I think helped a lot.
Toward the beginning of the interview, I had asked you about your biological father and the fact that he wasn't really in your life growing up. I know you're a father now. How does that play into how you parent your child?
Just want my daughter to have the best. So I just want to make sure that that she's getting the best out of life.
Gotcha. And
enjoying life. Yeah.
What's next for Chris Ivory?
I've been looking to get into a few things, but it's still unclear exactly what I want to do. But I have been looking at performance coaching. Okay. Just because I was one of those guys that, had injuries coming in and didn't really understand how to take care of his body. So I feel like being that I was actually able to go through that and learn what was needed to take care of my body, I feel like I can give back to those guys that may be dealing with the same things and don't quite understand like what it takes to build longevity.
All right, so that's it for the Chris Ivory interview, but don't go anywhere because now we're going to talk to John King, his high school coach. Hey, Coach King, how you doing? I guess we'll start with, what was Chris like in high school?
Very quiet, non-assuming, but very talented on the field, very violent, blocking, running, tackling with limited time he played defense for us, but he was just very explosive, but not a rah-rah guy. Just kind of went about his work and stayed to himself. But he wasn't a kid that would be detrimental to the team. He was not negative. He just kind of, he did his job and did to the best of his ability.
And during his time there, you were offensive coordinator and then you went to head coach, correct?
Correct.
So how different was the kid that showed up freshman year versus the kid that graduated senior year? What was his progress like throughout his high school career?
He was kind of to himself and really didn't get close to him until the latter part of his career. I guess it's a trust deal. He's got a bill, got the barrier that you got to break through. But I'd known his mother for many, many years. I'd watched Chris come up through our middle school ranks and so forth. And as you said, I was I was offensive coordinator his freshman and sophomore year, and he had to battle some injuries there. Overcome those, and then his junior and senior, I was the head coach, and of course he was a big part of what we did. And believe it or not, had a hard time promoting him some people because he played fullback in our offense. We were a two-back eye offense, and he did a lot of the grunt work. And we knew all along that we had two good running backs. One even went to the University of Texas, and then Chris. And we felt like Chris was the better of the two, but I guess I didn't do a good enough job of showcasing his ability. We knew he could, and he did play some tailback and one-back stuff for us, but very unselfish. Would do what we asked him to do and never complain.
So when you think back to the 4 years that Chris spent with you in high school, is there any memory or any moment that kind of stands out for you?
He just had so many big plays. I think about his senior year, we're playing Lake Highlands at their place, and, Chris, he scores a touchdown on a triple option deal out of the split back gun. He catches the pitch and takes it to the house, and then turns around. We put him in there on defense. He runs over there and hits the guy violently, causes a fumble, and we pick it up and run it back for a touchdown. That's just kind of the impact he had. I mean, he was just that kind of player. But that was always the comment I got from opposing coaches, just how violent he ran and how explosive he was. And just had a unique skill set and catch the ball in the backfield, would block, could run it, had the home run speed. I mean, he had everything.
Episode 16 in the books. Chris Ivory and John King, thank you both so much for your time. Who dat, everybody? We'll see you on the next one.